Hi, you're watching Leadernomics Let's Talk series, and today we have so privileged that we have Dr. Madana Kumar. He is an seasoned HR professional and has over 35 years of experience. He is deeply passionate about servant leadership. So, Dr. Madana Kumar, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time, and we want to talk about servant leadership in today's world. What do you think? It's an age-old subject, right? It's been there for very couple of decades. So how does it relevant, and how is it getting its prominence in today's digital world? So can you share us your some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you, Fathiman. So, as you correctly said, the concept itself is very old, actually, 2000 to 4,000 years back. Sun Tzu has spoken about it a little bit. Chanakya has spoken about it in some ways, and then Jesus Christ has spoken about it in the Bible for quite in quite significant manner. So this concept has been there, for a long time, and it is in the 1970s that Robert Greenleaf actually coined this term, servant leadership itself. And so that's from where the term servant leadership also started getting used. Right, so if you really look at the evolution of leadership as such, we would find that there are in the history of humankind, there are people who have used, power and authority to hurt others rather than to, help others
Absolutely.
grow and things
Yeah.
like that. And that's where the search for a different style of leadership, which encompasses the good aspects of, how the right usage of power, the concepts of spirituality, the concept of ethics, the concept of altruism, all that's put together. What is the most excellent form of leadership? And that's really what led to this discovery of servant leadership itself. And so if you look at today's world, for example, it's very complex, as you know, right?
Yeah.
And everything around us is changing, right? And as Thomas Friedman says, we are always catching up now. No more where technology. We used to be above the technology. We are now in a phase where we are catching up to technology, right? So the change is so fast and things. So everything around us is getting digitized. And because of that, there are a lot of changes happening in the way people view their work. And because of that, the way current generation looks at the work and generally the life around them itself has changed. It's no more a three-stage life as we used to have in olden times, where we work, study, work, and retire. It is going to be a multi-stage, life where you study, you do some work, you start something of your own, you pursue a passion of yourself, you work for a company, you switch companies, and then somewhere in the process, you ultimately end up retiring. So the employees of today have got a number of choices in what do they want to do, and hence it becomes a little difficult for organizations to get the best out of them unless their needs are catered to. And then that is where a different leadership style becomes a necessity.
Okay.
And that is where servant leadership comes in and becomes a great driver for ensuring that the employees give their best in this type of situation.
And as you know, in today's capitalist world, you have to always balance between the shareholders and employees. So how does the servant leadership plays a role? Are we trying to get too skewed towards employees and trying to ignore the shareholders? I mean, if you can give us a little bit more insight on that.
Yeah, good question. And one of the one of the reasons why servant leadership is not so popular is because of the multiple myths that surround it. And one of the myths is this, that no, that is it is because it places a lot of focus on employees, the focus on results is not there. And so high performing organizations cannot afford to have servant leadership as a philosophy. But in reality, that is not so, because servant leadership is the only leadership philosophy that balances perfectly between results and relationship. It is something that achieves results through relationship. as as Ken Blanchard says, profit is the applause that you get for taking care of your employees, which is something that has been proven, time and again by companies like Southwest Airlines or Chick-fil-A or TD Industries or whatever, whoever are the people who have implemented servant leadership as the overarching leadership philosophy in their organizations and have become successful, profitable, have recorded double-digit growth year over year, and have become huge enterprises by themselves.
And in India, right, as we're growing, definitely we are kind of, there's some gap of leaderships, and we are the youngest nation in the world, and we are going to generate a lot of leaders. So what advice or insights you will give in terms of how can they develop this mindset or even the skill set in terms of servant leadership?
Yeah, yes, you are right. I think this is the right time for us to pick that up and then run with it and make this sort of prevalent. So that people absorb it. So I guess multiple things need to happen. One is, of course, the leaders or the people who are at the top need to realize that they need to relook at their leadership philosophy and leadership style, and then align that to the servant leadership principles. And then, of course, obviously, people need to be taught on how to implement it, because as you correctly said, there's a lot of misconceptions about servant leadership, right? And so when you just hear the term, I mean, let's face it. The term servant leadership itself is an oxymoron, right? How can a servant and a leader coexist in one word, right? So that those misconceptions need to be broken, and people need to be really showed how we can really implement it. And so, for example, what we try to do is to take them through a 360-degree survey where they come to know where are they on the servant leadership attributes, and then help them create specific action plans to improve on areas where they need to improve, and thereby advance in their journey of being a servant leader.
So for that, there need to be some element of growth mindset where somebody should accept the feedbacks very positively and take some actions, right? Okay, so where do you see, I mean, the gap today is, and how can we fill that gap?
Right. The gap is, in my view, it is in the leadership mindset of people, where we are still rooted in what I call as the self-serving leadership mindset, right? When we look at the leadership, when we look at the team, when we look at an organization, we tend to look at how can that organization or how can that team serve my needs, right? Servant leadership is actually turning that completely upside down and asking the question of how can I serve them so that they become better, bigger, wiser, richer, healthier, wealthier, more famous than myself, right? So that putting others first, that turning that pyramid down from focus on being me, the self-centered leadership, or to other-centered leadership, is where we need to make that beginning.
But it's very challenging, because that again, it's a very long term.
Yes,
the
absolutely.
person needs to have a long vision, because a lot of time we are all short term. For example, we take appraisals. Oh, how do I deliver this year? How do I come maybe next 2 years? And that's why this whole the tug of war happens, right?
Yeah.
So basically what you're saying is, in terms of changing the entire perspective, like look long term, because that's where you will grow. When the team grows, when the people grows, you will go along with it. So that perspective needs to come, that paradigm shift needs to happen in every leaders. Okay. So any other last few wisdoms you would like to give our young generations in terms of improving their leadership skills?
Yeah, all that I can say is that that there is, as you correctly point out, there is a leadership challenge, or there's a leadership vacuum out there, and it is time for us to grow and fill that. And if we make leadership about others, it's going to be overall beneficial, not just for ourselves but for others, but for the country and for the humanity in itself. So that's ultimately what, and that is how you can make your life significant rather than just being successful. And there's a difference between these two, right? You can be successful but not necessarily significant, right? Significance is when you add value to yourself, at the same time you add value to others, and help others grow and succeed and things like
Absolutely, and I can clearly see you are role modeling, because as you're working with your corporate, you're also working with other organizations where you are trying to. Is it for children, or a little bit you can talk about on that?
that. Yeah, I work in the education where
Education.
educating young people about servant leadership,
Servant
and
leadership.
and then helping them to implement it in their organizations and things like that. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Dr. Madana Kumar. Deeply appreciate your time, and it was really wonderful talking to you. So we have been talking to Dr. Madana Kumar, who is a very seasoned HR professional and very well respected in the industry. So thank you for watching.